And this is also on your formula sheet if you wanted to change between inches and feet. 12 inches is 1 foot. So new seating plan, you are right behind. Yes. Here's a ruler for you.
Okay.
So if 12 inches is 1 foot, and you went to 2 feet on a measuring tape, how many inches would that be? And notice on the measuring tape right there, sure enough, when you get to 2 feet, it is 24 inches. Have you seen this before? That you can write feet with a single dash and inches with 2 dashes? Here is a ruler for you. There's a new seating plan, Stephanie. And you are right here, Stephanie. This is your spot. Have you seen that before with the little dash for feet and double dashes for inches? So if I went to my measuring tape and I went to 3 feet, what's it going to say in inches? 36 inches. You just add 12 every time. You can also solve these with our proportions. I want to know how many inches is 3 feet. I know that there are 12 inches in 1 foot. What would I need to do? I need to multiply both sides by 3. I go to my calculator. 12 times 3 is 36. And of course, these 3's would cancel out. So without extending our measuring tape, there's a new seating plan. You are behind Braden. So you can set up your proportion. I want to know how many inches are in 8 feet. I know there's 12 inches in 1 foot. Multiply them and you get 96. Excellent. 10 feet. 120 inches. And 12 feet. 144. How many feet are there in a yard? If you have your formula sheet, see if you can find it from there. If you know it already, there are 3 feet in a yard. How many feet are there in a mile? Is that on your formula sheet? There are 1760 yards in a mile. Okay? So we can use our conversions here to find out how many feet are in a mile. Okay? Because there are 3 feet in a yard, and there are 1760 yards in a mile. So if we wanted to set this up, we know that there are 3 feet is 1 yard, and there's 1760 yards is 1 mile. How would we figure out how many feet are in a mile? 1760 times by 3, because every yard has 3 feet, and if we have 1760 yards, we can figure out how many feet that would be. So you type that into your calculator, 1760 times 3, and we get 5,280 feet. How many inches are there in a mile? Well, what do we know? We know that there are 12 inches in 1 foot. So we have 5,280 feet. And if there are 12 inches in a foot, we can take that 5,280, multiply it by 12. And we get a huge number, 63,360 inches. Now on your measuring tapes, there's a centimeter side and there's an inch side. What we're doing today is we're working on the side that has inches. Now they've got a measuring tape listed here. This one has inches on the top and centimeters on the bottom. Yours has inches on one side, centimeters on the other side. Now what I'd like you to do is on the measuring tape that's in your booklet, locate the halfway point between 14 and 15 inches. That would be right there, and mark it. And even on our measuring tape, what do you notice about the halfway point? You notice that the line is a little bit longer than the other lines. Right between just what they chose. And it's the same between 13 and 14. The halfway point is a little bit longer. It's so that you can easily and quickly find it. Now on this measuring tape, the halfway point happens to be the same length as these ones. So depending on the measuring tape that you have, some of them make that halfway point quite a bit longer, some of them make it a little bit longer, and depends on the measuring tape that you're using. In the one in our textbook here, they've made the halfway point longer than all the rest. And that point, what does that mean? As a fraction of an inch, that's a half inch. And if you were right between 14 and 15, that's 14 and a half inches. Now we're going to skip to 7a. On our measuring tape, right up here, locate the point halfway between 14 and 14 and a half. I'm going to do that in blue. Can you see that that blue line is halfway between 14 and 14 and a half? As a length, that dash mark is a little bit shorter than the halfway dash mark. And that is, express that distance as a fraction of an inch. That whole distance is 14 and a quarter of an inch. And that little distance from 14, here's 14 to there, how many of those would you need to add up to go all the way across to 15? You would need 4 of them because they're quarter inches. Half inches, you would need 2 of them to make a hole. Quarter inch, you would need 4 of them to make a hole. And between 14 and 15, can you see that there's one other length that's that long? What does that represent? The other line that's the same length would be 3/4 of an inch. Why don't they have 2/4 of an inch? Because it's 1/2. Now on our measuring tapes that we handed out, if we look at them, you'll notice that that length, this length, this length, this length, and this length are all the same length. So they have decided not to make the 1/4 inch a little bit longer. They've made all of these ones the same length. And if I would count this space, how many of those spaces would it take to add up to the whole thing? You would need 8 of those. So each of those blue lines represents 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8.
I noticed something with our tape measures.
Yeah.
How, like the 14, 15 seconds, it goes all across. You would have the short line and then a little longer and then go shorter again and have that half.
Yes, so we got a short line and then a long line, then a short line, then a long line. These longer ones are all 8ths. Does anyone know what the shortest ones on our measuring tape would be then? 16ths. And that gets back to, we've done 1/4 inches, then the halfway point between 14 and 14 1/4. That would be this line here in red. That's going to be 14 1/8 of an inch. And how many of those do you need to fill up a whole thing? You would need 8 of them. Now, how many, I erase these lines just so we can see them, and we're looking for the one that is this length, 1/8 of an inch. Can you see you have another one here, here, and here? So if we were going to write those in, we'd have 1/8 of an inch, we would have 3/8, 5/8, and 7/8. We don't have 4/8 because that's a half. We don't have 2/8 because that's a 1/4, and we don't have 6/8 because that's 3/4. But if you wanted to count that same space all the way along, you could count it as 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and once you get to 8/8, you're at the next number. And then finally in 9, between 14 inches and 14 1/8, 14 1/16. Notice the bottom number is just getting cut in half. How many of those would you need to make a full inch? 16 of them, because they're 1/16 of an inch. Those will be the most tiniest lines. On our measuring tape, it's also the smallest lines. You have 1/16, but you also have 3/16, 5/16, 7/16, 9/16, 11/16, 13/16, and 15/16. And then looking back, why is that 4/16 line a different length? Because 4/16 is 1/4. And so it's the same length as a 1/4 inch. They make measuring tapes this way so that when you're working with a lot of measurements, you can quickly tell the measurements and not get them mixed up. Because if they just had a bunch of little lines, you might miscount. But it helps you count it quicker and easier. Now both of these measuring tapes that we have here, both the smallest they go to is a 1/16 of an inch. Sometimes you'll have measuring tapes that go even smaller to a 32nd of an inch. Just depending on what you're measuring and how accurate you want to be. I don't think I have any rulers here that go that accurate. So the smallest we have on ours is 1/16 of an inch. And how many are there in a full inch? 16. Let's look at the one that they have at the top of the page here. Theirs also only goes to 1/16 of an inch. Usually in centimeters, the smallest it goes to is 1 millimeter. And then each centimeter is separated into tenths.